I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome to Build an Iconic Life podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whitehead, and this podcast is dedicated to help you build a life with zero regrets by focusing on how you have everything you need to stand up, stand out, and live life on your terms. Let's dive right in. Hi, everybody. This is Liz. I'm Chris. We're business owners local to New Hampshire, and this is going to be an episode that you definitely want to pay attention to. And for all of you people that I put a post out that did not respond to this, I'm going to put this back in the Facebook group just so that you get to see that it is exactly what I said it is. But anyway, Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that you're here. And so I got two things for you. Number one, my wife and her best friend do a show called Daily Fork, where they it's a podcast. They're also on live radio in Nashua.
Have I heard?
Robin Brandis and Lisa Parda.
I think I have heard of them.
Yeah.
Probably one of those, that I put on the, I should.
I want to introduce you to them because you're in alignment.
Yeah.
So we live in Amherst, you live in Hollis. We have similar core values. And so everything that I look for now, so first I had to get educated in business, and then I could start educating others in business. But what was interesting, Liz, to me, I used to treat them as two separate things, business and life. They really, one is very similar to the other. And, but we follow certain boxes. Like you're like, oh, I should have done that. Yeah, but you didn't know. Right. But the number one thing that I found is when core values match up, the rest of life is pretty easy. I've had over 300 employees in my career. A lot of them were because I needed the peg to fit here to do the function, but it didn't create the community, the culture correctly. And usually it was one cancerous person that was eliminating all the good people, but the cancerous person was the one that was high performing and all those mistakes. So the first thing I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you talking about Hollis, is like, I'm right there with you. That's why we do what we do. When we were in the mastermind in Texas, like eventually I started, because I was so high up in it, my wife was coming every month. I would bring my kids down to major events because I wanted them to see this is what community can be.
Yes.
We don't have that here.
Right.
We have these small little pockets. And, but when we were growing up, I did walk outside, play at night. Mom, Dad never asked me where I was, what I was doing. There was no fear of anything. Everybody was happy to talk to everybody. And not that bad things weren't going on, but we just knew less about it. And the truth is, my opinion, we sensationalize all the negatives so much that we think everybody is bad. The truth is that's a really small percentage of the population. Most of us are actually really good, but we're now so scared that we're doing this. So I want to introduce you to them because I want you to consider coming on their shows. It'll help you. It's content. The same thing I said. It's content for them. And it could also just be, again, good core value people meeting each other. And you're all ladies. And it's like, I want Robin to have more friends that are ladies that I go, I like them.
Right.
Not like, I guess you can do business with them.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that you said it. So where are you with the Hollis project now?
Well, we start a group of friends and I got together and started talking about it, probably last spring.
Okay.
And then, just started to, percolate and, how did we see this project? Do we see this as a Facebook group?
Yeah.
Do we see this as, a website? Where did we see this going? And I felt strongly that it had to be on multiple platforms because not everybody likes Facebook. and quite honestly, if I didn't have a business, I would not personally be on Facebook because I just don't think that I think it's a nice way to connect with people you may have forgotten were out there, but I think it also invites a level of anonymous poking and
keyboard warriors.
Yeah, it's not good for any of us. It also is just another place to go other than your town community center, or hanging out at the town green, or going to a festival or something like that, where you're going to make those connections with individuals face to face.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the idea that, when you were a kid, you could run out. I had the same experience. But unfortunately, we're in a different place in the world and how we're functioning. But if we go back to community, if we make those connections, then these young parents will feel safe. They will know their children are looked after. I live in the historic center of town, right on a main road.
Yep.
And the reason we chose that was because I wanted people to know my children. I wanted them to see them. I wanted to know that if my kids were struggling with something, they would know me, they would come to me. If they were getting in trouble, one of them would call up and say, hey, so that's all about connection. When we looked at our house, my mother, now I grew up in the 1960s in a Connecticut suburb in a deep neighborhood, and we all played together. We could sit out in the middle of the street at night and play a board game, and nobody cared.
Yeah.
You'd car and you'd jump off the road or whatever, kick the can, all of that. So that's what my mother expected for me with my kids. And when we bought our house in the center of town, she said, what are your kids going to do? There's no place to go. I said, Mom, children are not outside playing in their playgrounds or in their neighborhoods. That's not happening. Kids are not riding up and down the street. If your kids are, good for you, because you've made that effort. You have to make a very conscious effort to have that relationship. And some people are so lucky to have that in their neighborhoods. But what I see is when I drive around during the day and I don't see a child anywhere after school. I don't see them anywhere. Except,
well, you know where they are.
Well, yeah. Okay. There are two places, right? They are, yes, but they're also in a very organized sport.
Yeah, it's true.
And I, of course, with two children, my son was, an athlete. My daughter didn't want to go down that road. But I figured out very quickly that in order to have him see his friends, he had to be in an organized sport. Nobody was just hanging out after school. So this is a very difficult place for a parent to be in who would really like to do the free range parenting, right?
Yeah.
Because how do you balance those two things? How do you balance the idea that your kids, you want them home with free time, you don't want to be involved in their play, right? But at the same time, you're made to feel that if they're not on a sports team, they'll never get the skills that they need to go on further. But you also realize very quickly, if they're not on a sports team, they're not going to be hanging out with friends. So that's why I just have been looking back, with our, shared experience as children.
Yeah.
And I think, what is missing here? And I think there are times when you can let your children go, but are we feeling safe in our own communities? Are we trusting the other adults to look out for our kids? Are other adults able to look out? Now we have households where both parents are working all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So mom's not necessarily home. Now, you and I live in communities, Hollis and Amherst, where many moms can afford to be at home. I mean, that's a different socioeconomic background. So, you could do that. And then the neighborhoods that we're building now, they're off of busy roads. How do we get kids riding their bikes? And, it's a lot of things involved. But how can I make a difference? So I can, on a website or now through a newspaper, remind people of what this community is and what it was, without all of the social interaction on the internet that could be intimidating to some
Yep.
people, et cetera, et cetera.
Can I share a story?
Sure.
So, so Robin and I both were divorced
Mhm.
and met each other. I moved up here and we met each other. So she had 7-year-olds. They were twins, right? And her ex-husband, they were successful.
Mhm.
They had plenty of money, but when you get divorced, mom has to go back to work.
Mhm.
So we made a deal. I would get up at 4:00 in the morning, come over to her house because she had the strict rule of until we're married, you will not be staying here.
Sure.
That was her rule, not mine, because I was like, it'd be so much cheaper. Anyway, that story's
Yeah,
happened a lot. But long and short, I'd come over at 4:00, 4:30 in the morning, fall asleep on the couch, get the kids on the school bus so that she could be a phlebotomist. Get up, get to work by 6, but she was home by 12 to 12:30 before the kids got off the school bus.
Right.
It was a huge strain on our relationship. It was a huge strain on her, because she went from being a stay-at-home mom to making $35,000 a year. But we also upped the ante. We go, no, we're going to move to Amherst. Well, she's going to move to Amherst. It's not cheap to live in Amherst.
Mhm.
She didn't find the most expensive home in Amherst, but she was savvy. She found a home that she could afford, that she could qualify for. And I supplemented. I'm a remodeler, so I fixed the entire home up. We sold the home a few years ago, made $400,000 on it, and we moved into our dream home. Things get better. But the point of my story is she had grown up in a broken home. I had grown up in a broken home, and we understood what that lack of community was like. And we eat dinner at the table every night. We hold hands and say a prayer every night. And we also made our home the home that every kid could come to because of the level of conversation that Robin would have with her children. She didn't treat them as equals, but she treated them as people. Emotionally, and where they were emotionally available, she handled it. But it allowed the kids to communicate with her. And it also, we had an open door policy, and it was because of that level of communication. So then the friends start coming over, and we hold hands at the table. Kids kind of, okay. They don't even eat dinner at the table for the reasons that you say. People are busy, right?
Yeah.
The next thing you know, a month later, the kids are coming over, and the first kids that are putting their hands out are them, not our kids.
Yeah.
And so I saw her build this small community inside of the home. And then you know what? The kids start bringing their parents over.
Right.
That's how we met them. And then we started having conversations. The next thing you know, somebody does something wrong or right. The phone calls happen, and then the community was back. And all I'm trying to say is, yes, Amherst and Hollis are both socioeconomically better than other areas around here. But it's not an excuse as a reason why they get to have community and others don't. The truth is anybody can choose to do it anywhere they want. They just need an example of somebody actually stepping forward and doing it. I'm really glad that you are, because I've experienced it too. I work in Hollis a lot. Like we have remodeling jobs there, except for the softball field. I don't see the kids riding the bike, except yesterday I did see 3 kids sitting next to the monument in the center. I was driving by a client. They were just sitting there dangling their legs, reading a book. And I was like, and it was cold as hell, but they were like, and I was like, there it is, but you don't see it.
Yeah.
And we do need it. And you're right. Organized sports is one way, but the other way is to just start these kinds of initiatives where I'm assuming you're bringing the adults in and having these conversations. Is that correct? Is that what you want to do?
Well, we invite that, obviously, but I think your story, what it points out is that our children are hungering for the community.
Yeah, they don't know what they don't know. Which is why they go to this and get lost in it.
Exactly. And when you look, it's, with kids, we always made sure that our children talked to adults by looking at them in the face. And that's some kids are more shy. It's very difficult, to you can't force a child to do that, but you lead by example, et cetera, et cetera. So when we talk to children we don't know, you still need to look at them and to respect, and to talk to them in a way that invites them to have the conversation back. I've bumped into a lot of kids, in the center of Hollis, and, we'll start a conversation, or even just walking by, smiling at them directly in the face. And they're ready for those conversations. So leading by example is great, but also creating an opportunity where people can say tradition is great.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
Mm-hmm.
We all have traditions in our family. We have traditions that we remember from when we were kids. And Hollis, Amherst, Nashua, they have traditions that the community had always been a part of. We need to bring people back to that, to remember. And it all, comes from people speaking to each other and listening, not going into a conversation ready to be offended.
Mm-hmm.
I never used to feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't want that to happen. So, our platform has nothing to do with politics at all, because we want people to be open to conversations like we did before, and we celebrate family, we celebrate our local volunteers, we celebrate our local safety departments, all of that. We recently did a story. We're trying to build a community center in town, and they needed help. They had no funding, so to get the word out. So I actually joined the committee for the Farley Building Community Center, which is a rehab of an old school from an original school from the late 1800s.
Okay.
And to rehab that into a community center, but people hadn't heard about it. So, our first copy of the Positively Hollis Post featured a story about it, because it was going to be in the home of every single person in Hollis. We have not had a newspaper in the home of every person in Hollis since I think probably about 2012. So that communication is missing. Now, when we first talked about that, and it's a for-profit LLC.
Mm-hmm.
Do I expect to make any money? No, it's a lot more work than I realized. But talking to potential advertisers, I had a few who were like, "Oh, newspapers are not where it's at," and I said, "Okay, just imagine this. It's a hometown newspaper. It's all about Hollis. You're going to be, for pennies on the dollar, in front of every single person in Hollis, and still nothing." Well, we mailed that newspaper out. We had some advertisers with us. They were thrilled. People receiving it couldn't believe it. And they said, now I can have, a newspaper with a cup of coffee, because people don't get the New York Times. They're not getting the Wall Street Journal. They're not getting, the Union Leader. They're not getting those anymore. But this came free to their door, and it will sit on their counter for 3 months.
Yeah. I think it's brilliant.
So
I know if we had one in Amherst, why wouldn't I want to know what's going on in my county?
Yeah. Now, we're doing quarterly. We're starting out. It's not news of the day. It's not time sensitive, but it gives you the opportunity to go a little bit more in depth. So people learned about that Farley Building project. They learned for the first time where it is, where it's going, what they need. Nobody knew about that.
Well, it has the opportunity to make you proud of where you live.
Yes, exactly.
Which is so everything that I hear you saying is you saw the erosion of community for various reasons, and no one can deny that anymore. We've become more nuclear than we've ever been, and all you're doing is you're girding the foundation walls again, going, look, if you do this, the rest happens. Yeah. You don't have to focus on the high level stuff. You focus on doing the first things first. Yes. It's like teaching children. I remember one time I was talking to my ex-wife, and I was like, I took calculus and I went to college and I did all this stuff. I don't know what I was doing with it. I don't even know, except for basic math, why I had math. And this is what she said to me. Chris, algebra is not there to teach you formulas. It's to teach you how to think.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. So these things have been here forever
Mhm.
because they actually work to build civilization. And everybody's wanting to point fingers at the people at the top,
Mhm.
when the truth is the same thing I said about iconic. We're either going to create leaders now and do it
Mhm.
here,
Mhm.
or it's never going to happen because that ship has sailed.
Mhm.
They can't help us from that high up. The problems are too big now. And
So,
you're another
right.
community builder.
Right.
I love it.
This is right. It's about my hometown. I mean, it matters. It matters what you feel like when you walk into town hall. Those people are fabulous. How many people do that? How many people walk into town hall now? Because now you can do everything online,
Mhm.
right? These people can help you better understand, why are your taxes high? It's a friendly face to help you explain, rather than going on Facebook and screaming. And you need to make that connection with people. And it also helps you to step back and just simmer down. Whatever the topic is, simmer down just a little bit. Take that temperature down. But
what do you think? What do you think is the reason? Like, so I don't know how many people that are listening to this are in local Facebook groups. I am.
Mhm.
Okay, I own a business that is worldwide, mainly focused in the U.S., but I own a remodeling company. I like Bedford. I like Amherst. I like
Mhm.
Hollis, because
Yeah.
those are the clients
Right.
that I do business with. And I join the groups, join the Merrimack group.
Yeah.
Have you seen, everybody loves the negativity? Everybody loves to be cynical, even in
Yeah.
our hometown groups. And I'm not from New Hampshire. I'm from the South, where people, like, when you talk like that, you're ready to actually fight or sue someone. Down there, they don't do that. They say really nice things when they're actually meaning very mean things. It's not any better.
They have a way of turning a phrase right around. You're like,
Right.
did you really mean that? Or
They say bless your heart, which
that's
means
right.
screw
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
It's the beauty of the Southern language. Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
here, I've noticed you can put out positivity in a like we have 17,000 people in the Amherst group.
Yeah.
Somebody can say something cynical and smartass, and every comments and loves it. Somebody puts out positivity and it's crickets.
So
What is your
okay, and I'm so glad you asked that question, because I am the admin, and I have other moderators for a group called Positively Hollis in Brookline. So we have a Hollis Brookline community page that gets a lot of, the 11,000. I don't know how many people are in that.
Yeah.
Ours is, we just broke 3,000.
Sure.
I didn't start this group, but the gentleman who did decided that it was time to hand it over to somebody else. So, I said, well, I'll give it a shot. So what I've discovered is we just went through town elections in March, right? And what we're looking for is good discourse. You can disagree, but your tone matters.
Sure.
Because your tone will either raise the temperature, level it out, or take it way down. All right. And what I have seen is we had some people coming in talking about what had just happened in town meeting, for example, all ablaze, all ready to go, and granted, this is after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, all right, we can have a discussion. Why are you so angry? But they kept coming in that way. And I couldn't understand, were they provoking? Okay, because this is a pretty subtle group. The other group is where a lot of people really get into it. This has not been that.
It's also called positivity.
Positively, right. So I then I got complaints about some people, and I had to really figure this out very quickly. And remember that I, as an admin and my moderators, we had to set a bar. And our whole thing is, would you say this to someone's face?
With that tone.
With that tone. And would you stand there and listen to what they had to say back to you? And we also I had to approach the idea of anonymous posting. So other Facebook groups allow anonymous posting. Now, if you're going to post something that's very heated or provocative, and you do it anonymously, you get to walk away. You get to light the fire, watch them all go at it, and you get to walk away. We weren't going to allow that in our group, so I don't allow that. It's a chosen toggle to either put it on or put it off. So we don't do that. But what I had to do throughout that time, and it was a good 2 weeks, I had to take comments down that I felt were either bad language or they didn't follow our rules. And this is the thing. You set parameters and you just stick by it. I didn't have to do too much, nail biting on it because we had some really good rules. And then I started to see the tone changing. Then the discourse became more contemplative, more thoughtful. And then I noticed that in the other group, their tone changed too.
Huh.
Their rules changed.
So your group started to infect the other group because there were cross-pollination, you think?
I believe that is what happened. Sure. Because people kept saying, I knew there were people there from the other group, and I knew some of them were provocateurs, right? And they were like, well, positively means I can't speak my mind. Well, that's not true at all. That is not true at all. You are welcome to speak your mind, but you need to do it in a tone that invites discussion. And if you cannot do this, maybe this isn't the group for you. And, I took some people by surprise. I'm learning. I could have, and maybe should have said, hey, by the way, you really shouldn't do that. I learned because I'm new to this. I never had to confront people about their tone of voice or anything like that before. And look, as you know, and as Robin knows, it's never fun to be the mean mom in the room. It just isn't. But there was a greater purpose to this group, and that's for people to feel comfortable in it and comfortable disagreeing. Why can't I disagree?
Yeah. Why can't we agree to disagree?
Why can't I question? Why am I not allowed to be skeptical?
You reminded me of something. So it was so I have a sister and I've got 3 brothers. But I went to college when my sister was going through the teenage years. Mm-hmm. I met her when she finally had boobs again, and the guy came to the door to take her out on a date, and I slammed the door, and it's meathead older brother. But I saw Caleb coming into her own around 14, 15, mm-hmm. 16 years old, our daughter. And Robin is a really more conservative person. Kayla is a more liberal person. They're both very caring, but they're coming from completely opposite mm-hmm. directions. And I saw as Kayla was getting her own voice, it was starting to create friction between them in conversation, right. Because Robin would come talk to me about it, but she didn't know what to talk to Kayla about. And Kayla was becoming more emphatic, which kids do as they start to get their own voice. Mm-hmm. And I remember finding this YouTube video. It was a 2-hour-long video of 2 opposing parties having a disagreement through discourse.
What is the name?
I can't remember for the life of me.
Is it a group that regularly does this?
Yes.
Yes. A friend of mine took part in.
And so I brought them both to the kitchen counter. Yeah. And I said, "Watch this."
Right.
And I just held it.
Yeah.
And I didn't give them any advice. I just said, "I thought that was interesting."
Right.
And then I walked away. Just like you said, I believe it should start in the family first.
Yep.
Hey, dad and mom, my dad and my stepmom, my dad worked in Washington, D.C., traveled around the world, mm-hmm. staunch conservative. My stepmom was a school teacher, liberal as they come. Mm-hmm. They've been together for 45 years. It can happen. you can raise a child that doesn't agree with you and not demean them for having their own belief. And now that our kids are 21, Robin and I have a lot of conversations about, we have to change the lenses on our glasses. I can't see Jonah anymore as a 15-year-old boy. He's a 21-year-old man. And either I'm going to treat him as such, or I'm going to hobble him for the rest of his life. And that the whole reason I became an entrepreneur is because if you tell me to go right, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go left. Like, I don't like being told what to do.
But I think what part of the success of that YouTube for you, that program, was that what we discover is that we actually agree on a lot more than we disagree. It's just the lens that you're looking at it through. So when you can express that and get your opposing person to understand, let's just list this out. You know, I've had conversations with people at the local transfer station where I went and said, what drives you to the polls? What is important to you? And someone said to me, I'm a Republican. So I was very clear. I'm with the Republican committee here. Someone said, oh, you don't want to talk to me. I'm a Democrat. And I said, you know what? You're exactly the person I want to talk to, because nobody else will talk to. Why? Talk to me. Tell me.
I don't want to live in an echo chamber.
I need to know. Right. So she and I started the conversation, ended up sitting on the back of her vehicle, and I started writing a list. And then I said, can we look at this list together? And she said, yeah. And I said, this is the list you and I agree on. And there were 10 things on that list. Couple of things on the opposite side. We just wanted to know, once we discovered that, we're like, oh, okay, so there is a lot more. And she understood that. And then what did she say to me? She said, I might vote for you because now I trust you. I like you as a person. So, it's that kind of conversation you cannot have when people are using language and they're hiding behind. And you have to be open in order to begin those conversations. And again, as I said before, don't approach somebody prepared to be offended.
Yeah, listen,
because they want to be heard too, just like you. We can walk in with a smile and leave with a smile. This is not too complicated. But you're always going to have those people who will do anything they can to twist and try to be your voice when they have never once spoken to you. Never once. And so, I ran for office 2 years ago. And I hope that, I believe I'm going to do this again. It's something I feel very strongly about. But I need to be able to make those connections. And if somebody says to me, you don't want to talk to me because I'm a Democrat, or you don't want to talk to me because you and I will automatically disagree, there is not one person I want to talk to more than to find out what it is that you're thinking.
I remember, to me, it's, I grew up so I was born in 1973. Vietnam, all that was going on, civil liberties, people of color just 2 decades before, even though they were free, had no opportunity. Women had very, very little opportunity. And here we are with the same mindset. Now it's, what party do you belong to, or what town do you belong? Like, there's a running joke between Bedford, Hollis, and Amherst about, hating each other, and you live there. And it's people try to put things in boxes all the time. My greatest learning in life, I'm a heterosexual male, but I worked in the restaurant industry for a while. I had a lot of gay friends. So I would go sit down and talk to them about what that's like. 2001, September 11th happened. I was still in Virginia. I drove 45 minutes to get my hair cut by a Muslim guy. I had a black guy cutting my hair, talked to him for 2 hours and he's like, Chris, most of us are not like that. And so The only way I have learned is outside of an echo chamber. I started this all by telling you when I first moved up here, I probably should have gotten the job first and started the business second.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people are starting the business on social media thinking that they know, but where is the solution?
Right.
There's no solution. It's a zero-sum game. Either we win or you win. And it's like, is that how civilization is going to find harmony? Is you got to be one way or the other? I thought we're trying to diversify and allow. Now there's certain rules that we're still trying to work through. I think Planet Fitness allowed a fellow to go use the restroom in the ladies' locker room. They lost a whole $400 million or something. I have a daughter. I'm not so keen on that one. I think we need some refinement on some of that stuff. But why not discuss it instead of get angry about it? And I so love the fact that you're a proponent of it, because do you feel that, how old are your children now? 30s?
They're 25 and 29.
Do you look at them now and go, I'm actually really proud of, that's
yeah.
how we feel about our kids too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that went into that. A whole lot of work.
Yeah. But the thing to remember too, I'm sure you've discovered this, is our kids come with stuff.
Of course.
Right. So
that's been my learning.
Yeah. They come with stuff. And my children are listeners. And I think they're better listeners than me. Like, I can give them both advice and they'll just let me lay it down on them. And then they go think about it. Now, they could reject it or not. They're very nice about doing that. I'm very fortunate. My daughter and her husband are definitely, New Hampshire. They want to stay here forever. They love what New Hampshire has to offer them. We're expecting our first grandchild in less than 10 days.
Congratulations.
I know, it's very exciting. And my son is working in Boston. And he in Boston has a lot more outside influence. And he's been able to navigate that in a way that suits him as a young, single guy. And but now to have them as adults, we enjoy each other's company. We are enjoying talking to each other. I learn so much from my kids because I have room to grow.
Yeah.
Right. And I have room to listen, and I have the luxury of just being now a mom and soon to be a grandmother. I don't have to parent either of them at this point. Although I will say, I still have both of them come to me with, a concern,
It's
Mom,
beautiful.
I'm worried, or whatever, so we're very fortunate. But that comes from, we had meals together every night.
Yes.
We did, we
effort,
laid
you put the effort in.
foundation into that. Yeah.
I brought Jonah into this business, partially for legacy and partially because he's more analytical than me. I'm more of a doer. He's more of a thinker. It means he's also highly detail oriented.
Yep.
I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm like, just go get it done. And we ended up having a pretty major disagreement. And he's 21, so he got a little hot, and so I decided to write him a letter. He decided to write me a letter back. I'm glad I got to read the letter and go process for a few hours.
Yes.
But this is the beautiful thing that happened. We brought his mom in too, serious enough to have that conversation. We sat on the couch in my office, or he and his mom sat on the couch. I sat in my chair, and we went line by line. He started the letter off with the word Christopher. That's part of what set me off really quickly.
Sure.
And my assumption was that he was being a smartass. But when I asked him, he said, I was just trying to treat it with the professionalism that I thought you were treating me with. And I was like, look at the assumption that I made. And so to your point, I'm so grateful that I've grown, because I used to not be this way, to the place where I can ask the question, is that what you meant by that?
Right.
You didn't.
So what you're seeing there is he's been listening all along, and he understands the importance of professional approach I've always told my kids, dress just a little bit better than everybody in the office. It's little things like that and people take notice.
They sure do.
But he understood how he needed to reach you. You weren't expecting it.
I was, and that's the whole point of saying it,
Yeah.
is that I was in the wrong
Yeah.
because the flavor of the
Right.
entire letter changed
Exactly.
because of my first assumption.
Yes.
But as we went line by line, there was only one thing in a 2.5-page letter that he wrote that I said, do not ever say this again.
Right.
To me, I'm the boss,
Right.
right? But 99.9% of it, I misunderstood everything. And I'm so grateful that I took the time to say, what do you mean?
Well, and that he would be willing to sit down with you.
Oh, we were both,
it could have been.
We were both, you could see us both in the nervousness of like, how do we jockey?
Right,
but our relationship has 10x'd in communication since then. We give each other so much more grace now.
Right.
And it's so just, I agree with you. Everything you're saying.
Yeah. So he is, it sounds like he is ready to be at a different level himself. I mean, that's a level of maturity that he didn't have just a few weeks prior, maybe.
Possibly.
He wrote that note. He realized that was the way to approach you. So good. That's wonderful.
Well, and the point that I'm making is, unless you have Facebook groups like this, or even the newsletter, there's a million ways you can skin the cat. But unless you're displaying it, unless you're because it is a lot of work, isn't it? By the way, you think you're just going to start a little Facebook group. You think you're just going to start a little newsletter. And the next thing you know, it's like, that's more than a full-time job.
Well,
but it takes that effort to produce this result over time. And it takes tenacity to stick with it. So you better have a purpose behind it.
Right. But you also, the building of the community will give us the feedback we need, because I need people to contribute.
Gotcha.
Right. So we have to build a trust for people to want to contribute, but then, then to let them know that this is a platform that fits your message and who you are as the messenger. So, I don't think we try to be very clear on the website. We do update the website. The website has a blog that we do stories.
Sure.
I try to do, get submissions or whatever, so that every week we have between 1 and 3 at least. So there's fresh content on the website all the time. The newspaper is quarterly. We are now going to do a June issue. So we have a deadline. I've got to get all of my stories. I've got interviews out. The nice thing is, what I do is I contact somebody that I think they have something interesting and say, hey, could I send you like 4 interview questions? And could you, at your leisure, what works for you, answer those. And then I kind of work that into the story. So we try to be as accommodating to people as possible. I just connected with the school superintendent and said, this is a great opportunity for the high school and the middle school to be into the community. Because if I don't have a kid in school, I don't ever see what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing, and unless I happen to be a sports fan or whatever. So there's a lot happening in the high school, a lot of great things happening at the high school. They have a newspaper. So I said to the superintendent, we want to be a bridge between the community and our high school students or our middle school students. We want people in our community who don't have kids in school to know what they're doing from their perspective. Let us be the bridge for that. So I just got my first contact from some young journalist student. He writes, I love this. He writes a column in the school newspaper called the Happiness Journal. And I was like, he awesome. Identified, yes, this is an opportunity to meet. So I'm like, this kid is a marketing kid. He knows exactly how to get his message out there. He connected with Positively Hollis. So we're going to be going back and forth to get a story either in the paper, but certainly on the website. So it's making those connections, getting those fingers out there and having people be receptive to that. We'd love to get young families parents. We used to have, do you remember a birth announcements?
Yeah.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
I'd love to have, we do a coloring page. I'd love for kids to color them. We have a gallery on the website. So it's just all different ages. We have a section called the Golden Spotlight. This is for our seniors. And they have a lot of stories to tell us. They have a lot of memories to share about Hollis, and how it used to be and how
What's
it
the
can still
website?
can be. It's called positivelyhollis.com.
If people, number one, I want to thank you for taking the time to come in and be on the show.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
If people wanted to connect with you, besides positivelyhollis.com, how else could they find you?
Well, there's a couple ways. I mean, you could go to Liz Barbour's Creative Feast. There is, information there about my business. I also have a Facebook group called Live Free and Fast, intermittent fasting. I've been running that for a couple of years. We've got about 500 members. They can check that out. But the best way to reach me probably is just to go through the Positively Hollis.
Okay.
And then
it has a contact us page.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's got everything about us, FAQs,
Cool.
anything you want to know. It's there. There's complete transparency. We want as many people in the Hollis community involved as possible.
Well, I definitely want to hook you up with Lisa and Robin and network what you're doing out a bit more. What an awesome. So this all started because I just put a post out on Facebook and said, hey, I've built this, very expensive podcasting room, and I believe in entrepreneurism. I believe in the positivity. And lo and behold, look who showed up. So I'm really grateful for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the post.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't get what you don't ask for, right? So yeah.
And again, to the cynicism, I know that there are people that are looking at it going, what's the hook? Here's the hook. If you do good things, the world becomes better and you get good things back.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I want to see it again, because there's been too much negative conversation going on around so many things without solutions. And it's so awesome to meet somebody that's solution oriented. That gives me hope, and I hope it gives our listeners hope. And we'll have you on the show again sometime.
I hope you do.
Talk.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it.
Everybody, we'll see you in the trenches. Take care.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Hey friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to catch future casts. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it so others can benefit from it as well. I'll see you in the trenches.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.